So we'll open this public hearing. I'll begin by reading the notice of public hearing. Have a proposed no wake ordinance for Bonneville County, Idaho, ordinance number 240-21. Now the county commissioners of Bonneville County, Idaho, invite the public to attend a hearing on Wednesday, May 5th, 2021 at 1 p.m. in the commissioners hearing room located in the Bonneville County Courthouse, 605 North Capitol Avenue, Idaho Falls. And via Zoom, meeting ID 5208-1560 to discuss a proposed no wake ordinance and to collect public comment related thereto and to consider amendments and or adoption of the proposed ordinance. A summary of the proposed ordinance is located below. There was a summary published along with the notice that a copy of the full text of the proposed ordinance may be obtained from the Bonneville County Commissioner's Office, 605 North Capitol Avenue, between 9 a.m. and 5 p.m. by requesting the copy of the Commissioner Secretary email. The summary is a true and complete, provided adequate notice to the public and contents thereof, dated this 9th day of April 2021. To begin with, those in attendance, all three commissioners, and we do have our prosecuting attorney, Craig Daniels, our Parks and Recreation manager. And so who's presenting this? Will it be you, Craig? Kind of walking us through it?
Sure.
Yeah, if you want to move up to the microphone and then state your name.
Craig Daniels with Parks and Rec. Over the last few years, we've seen some problems on waterways, especially on the busy lakes. So we've come up with an ordinance to try to help satisfy some of these needs. The ordinance just limits the amount of wake a boat can put out close to a park, on the water park, dock, vessel, or anyone in the water or any structure in the water. Do you want me to go through the vessels and all that, or how would you want me to do that?
Just kind of give us the highlights if we can follow along reading.
It does, on the second page, it does go through where the no wake zones are. On Ryrie, it'll be 200 feet from person or vessel in the water, within 100 feet from any shoreline or structure, within 300 feet from the point where the water meets the unsubmerged portion of the following boat ramps: Juniper boat ramp and Blacktail boat ramp. And then within 300 feet from the point where the water meets the shoreline of the following recreation areas on Ryrie Reservoir: Blacktail Park, Benchland Park, and Willow Point Park. Then it defines Palisades Reservoir. There shall be no wake within 200 feet from any person or vessel in the water, within 200 feet from any shoreline or other structure, including boat docks or floating docks, within 300 feet from point where the water meets the unsubmerged portion of the following boat ramps: Calamity Boat Ramp, Blowout Boat Ramp, and Big Elk Boat Ramp. Within 300 feet from the point where the water meets the shoreline of the following recreation areas: Pine Bay Boat Mooring Park, Snake River Boat Mooring Park, and McCoy Creek Campground. And then those are pretty much the highlights, and then it goes through. You want me to go through the penalties on the last page?
Yeah, just to read them on the record.
Okay, penalties for violation of this code is a first offense constitute an infraction punishable by a fine not to exceed $90. Second offense shall constitute an infraction punishable by a fine not to exceed $150. A third offense shall constitute a misdemeanor punishable by a fine not to exceed $300 and jail time not to exceed 6 months. That's And then you have the 3 signatures underneath for the commissioners.
Okay. Any questions?
Well, I have some couple of questions. I'm a little concerned with within 200 feet from any person or vessel in the water. I see a scenario where, you know, another boat, I mean, they're 600 feet apart, but the one boat comes toward that boat causing the wake, and they end up within 200 feet. Who is the one in violation at that point?
Well, I think that's going to have to be I mean, if that happens to be in front of a deputy, it'd probably have to be a deputy's call on that. You know, I'm sure those kind of things will happen. I'm not sure how to address that at this point, especially when both vessels are moving.
Yeah, and Craig, I apologize for putting you on the spot. I did not think about that scenario until just now as I was reading through it for the last time.
I mean,
And I'm one of my biggest concerns with this is enforcement, because I want to see it enforced. And so I don't want to have anything in here that makes that problematic.
right. The bit from Parks and Recreation, the biggest standpoint that we've got is the problems with close activity to wakes and docks and people and shoreline protection. And, you know, of course, with all laws, there is going to be a judgment call in part of the officer, that there just pretty much has to be that.
Well, let me back up to the sentence just above that. It said there shall be no wake. So wouldn't it be the one in violation is the one making the wake? If one is moving along not making a wake and the other is, they're within 200 feet.
Well, it would be the one making wake, but if both are under power and both making wakes, both boats should power down.
Right.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, if I could speak to this. In my discussions with the sheriff and with the water deputies, part of their enthusiasm for an ordinance that would allow them to intervene was directly related to a couple of serious accidents involving one boat moving, one not moving, or one moving slower, or jet skis jumping really close across the wakes made by other boats and colliding because they're not watching other jet skis. And then I actually asked the water deputies the same question. So what happens if you have 2 boats that are just passing in the narrows, where we discussed, because the distance to the narrows is pretty tough. And in most cases, this is going to be a stop and warn and educate really heavily for the first year or 2, so that people understand what the rules are. It's not, the intent's not to go out and charge everybody who makes a mistake. It's to educate them that there's life risk involved in this kind of behavior. And they want to see, without the ordinance, they don't have any teeth to say, okay, you guys need to pay attention. And you know, it's as Craig said, when it comes down to a deputy or you take 2 deputies to stop 2 boats going opposite directions, it's going to come down to the judgment call of the deputy, and I have faith in their ability to decide what's right in terms of pushing them forward. Does that help?
Yeah.
Question. I did also have a question, since we have our attorneys here in section C. It says unless otherwise specified in the Idaho Code, the first offense shall constitute an infraction punishable by a fine not to exceed $90. Are we setting $90, or how do we set the fine itself? Yeah, you got an answer?
You want me to?
Yeah.
You got it? All right.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I might just speak to this. I noticed that when it was read, that the The ordinance reads somewhat like a statute, but like a misdemeanor statute. The fine infraction should be fixed, and so it shouldn't be not to exceed. It should simply be a fixed number. And then addressing court costs with it is how you should handle the first and second offense. And the third offense, I think, is written properly, because then you've got a judicial discretion as to the amount.
So would it be an acceptable change to say a first offense shall constitute an infraction punishable by a fine of $90?
I would think so. I'll defer to Weston for statutory construction, but I believe that's more appropriate for an infraction language.
Weston?
That's fine. I agree.
Okay. Now that's the one change I think we should take a look at, because we did publish it so we can amend this. And so that might be a suggested amendment, that is to strike the not to exceed and just say it shall be a fine of $90. Or in number 2, II, it punishable by a fine of $150.
Yes,
Okay,
that is, I think that would be more aligned with the rest of the code.
okay.
Can I take just a moment and speak to the previous issue that Mr. Commissioner Reed raised? Just to kind of comment on, dovetail on, I think, what other people have commented on. You've got certain vetting processes that occur within the justice system. You've got initially, and everyone ends there, initially you have the discretion of the officer. But after that, it gets vetted by my office. And then after that, it gets vetted by the court. And so by the time we get to a judicial decision on someone violating the ordinance, I think as written, it's fine. It's enforceable. It is going to go through some discretionary functions of my office and the court to determine when it's appropriate to levy that consequence. Ultimately, I think, and everybody's intent here, I think, is to protect our waterways, our shoreline, protect life and property of others. That's everyone's goal. I know that's, speaking with the sheriff and all of you, that's something that we've focused on. I think that's appropriate. When we get to the point where someone's judged by a court on the issue, it is going to be for that egregious conduct that is identified by law enforcement or others that's attempting to subdue the issue that we're currently seeing. And I think in that regard, the ordinance is well written in order to accomplish that goal. But I'll stand for any questions on that if you'd like. I'm just helping out here.
Sure, you have a question?
I appreciate that. I'm just thinking, I think that does help me feel better about the way it's written. I'll just restate that I don't want to pass the ordinance that's not going to be enforced. So I hope that there will be enforcement on this. And if you're comfortable that this is enforceable the way it is, then yeah, I appreciate that answer.
Well, you're the legislative body, and so you get to make the law, and the sheriff gets to enforce it as he deems appropriate. But
And
you
get
should not
to-
have discretionary function on that issue.
Yeah.
You should be enforcing what laws you pass.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Prosecutor, sir. Okay, anything else, Craig, before we open the public testimony?
Unless there's any other questions, I don't think I have any. Kent, you have anything?
I just had
Yeah,
a question.
come up to state your name and address, and this will be the public testimony part.
Yeah, my name is Kent Bateman. I'm actually the Bonneville County Waterways Committee Chairman. A lot of the stuff that Commissioner Reed was talking about with the distances between a boat passing, a lot of that stuff is covered under the U.S. Coast Guard rules of the road, basically. So, a boater should know who has the stand-on position, and who doesn't. So as long as they know what they're doing with the boat, a lot of that should never happen, so.
And I'm aware you're fairly familiar with boats.
Yeah, I've been around a while.
Yeah. You basically have sold them for many, many years. You're very
Yeah,
familiar
yeah.
with them.
So 27.
Yeah. Do you think this is workable?
I do. If the sheriff's office will enforce it, it won't take a whole lot of people seeing other people being ticketed. And people start taking it serious. When the sheriff starts going around and doing vessel checks on the lake with their lights going, when they stop somebody and they'll just check their life jackets, etc. That makes a big difference to the other 20 boats that can see that boat being stopped. And you'll see people putting life jackets on all the time. So yeah, as long as it's enforceable and enforced by the water deputies, I think it's a good ordinance.
Okay, thank you, Ken. Anyone else wish to add? Greg?
I just want to make sure Ken was heard. I think that covers for my end. Thank you.
Perfect. With that, we'll close the hearing to public testimony. And the floor is open for suggestions, motions, etc.
Mr. Chairman, if you're ready for a motion, I would do that. I would move that we adopt ordinance number 240-21 with the modification under item C, which deals with enforcement, that the first offense shall constitute an infraction punishable by a fine of $90. And under number 2, the second offense shall constitute an infraction punishable by a fine of $150. With those two changes, all other items as written.
Okay, we have a motion. Commissioner Walker?
Motion or second?
A second.
A second. I second that.
Okay. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, I guess one question, this, Weston, probably this takes effect immediately upon adoption, or do we, I know sometimes we have to publish an ordinance once it's been adopted.
Yes, so can you guys hear me okay?
Huh?
Yes, you can.
Yes.
Okay, sorry, I had some troubles hearing Commissioner Walker, so I had to put a headpiece in here. Yes, so the ordinance becomes effective once it's published, which has to be done within 60 days, if I remember correctly, of the adoption of the ordinance. Always, I would encourage that the ordinance be published immediately. We do have a summary, and I don't believe that summary really requires much modification for publication. In fact, just looking at it here, it doesn't look like we need to really even change much of that summary to get that out for publication. Did I answer your question?
Yeah, maybe you could work with Kayla to make sure we've got, unless it's the exact same, but there's going to be some different wording on where it's been duly adopted, and get the language for publication and then get that published as soon as we can.
Sure thing.
Okay, thank you, everybody. We stand adjourned.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.